Good morning. Nice to see everybody this morning. We have a great turnout this morning. Glad to see everybody. I'm Kathleen Vogelsang. I am the president of the Seidman College of Business Alumni Association, and I'd like to welcome you all here this morning. I just have a few short announcements, and then we'll get our program started. First of all, I would like to acknowledge Ambassador Peter Secchia and his wife Joan, who are here with us this morning. And on behalf of the Seidman College of Business, I'd like to thank you for your very generous funding of our breakfast. Thank you very much. My second announcement is I would like to invite you all to our next breakfast series. This is the last breakfast series for this academic year. It is on May 11th here in the Loosemore Auditorium, and it features Birgit Close from The Right Place. This is an annual May speaker series that we've had for the last several years, and if any of you have attended, you know that this is one that you don't want to miss. Birgit is always very insightful, thought-provoking, and she gives us a little bit of economic outlook for West Michigan, and certainly all near and dear to our hearts. In addition to Birgit, at that breakfast, we also honor the West Michigan businesses that were acknowledged in Lansing recently by Governor Granholm. These are the 50 businesses to watch, and these are the West Michigan businesses, so you won't want to miss that. Put that on your calendar. We always have a full house, so you'll want to get your reservations in early. And with that, I will turn the podium over to Grand Valley State University's President Tom Haas, who will introduce our speaker this morning, Doug DeVos. Tom.
Thank you. It's good to have you all here on a great Laker day, I would call it. Just look at that sky out there. It's pretty darn nice. It's great. I'm going to share a little personal story quick. First time that we've had our family with us who reside in Alaska. And this morning I've been up since 4 o'clock. And the reason I was up at 4 o'clock is I have a 2-year-old granddaughter. You know, it's not any better than to be woken up with a kiss and a hug. I'll tell you that. And these folks live in Seward, Alaska, so it's a special joy. But it's also a real special joy when I can introduce a good friend here to Grand Valley State University and to this gathering for the Seidman College. And that good friend is, as you know, is Doug DeVos, the president of Amway. And he oversees the operation of an $8.2 billion and growing Amway Corporation. It's a remarkable story, and we know that story, and the story continues now. His belief is in the ability to foster entrepreneurs around the work reflected in the company's record of sales growth during the time of his presidency. That's a key, that idea of entrepreneurship and innovation. But this is what I thought was most appealing to me. He's really built this company on what I would call enthusiasm. Enthusiasm for the business, but enthusiasm for bringing the right people together. And those right people, through Amway, employs 13,000 people and 4,000 people right here in West Michigan. He's helped Amway grow into one of the world's most influential and international companies with more than 3 million affiliated distributors worldwide. And those reflect the cultures within those communities worldwide. He has served and continued to serve in leadership positions in Asia and Europe and the Americas. He's also involved with many business and civic organizations locally with the Econ Club of Grand Rapids, the Gerald R. Ford Foundation, the Early Childhood Commission, and Keystone Community Church. He's earned his bachelor's degree from Purdue School of Management and a member of the Dean's Advisory Council for the Purdue Kranick School of Management. A couple of interesting facts. Doug was the quarterback for Purdue Boilermakers football team. Not too bad, but Michigan, Michigan State, Grand Valley. And Doug's wife, Maria, is a Grand Valley State alum, and she's serving as one of our alumni champions. Doug is also the co-chair of the Seidman Building Campaign, part of our Shaping the Future campaign. He and his family, as we know, have been long supporters of Grand Valley State University and this region. And just a side note, I've gotten to know Doug through these last few years with his role in the steering committee on the West Michigan to Chambers Public Policy Conference. And to see his ability, his insights, his character in influencing and informing public policy is second to none. And I'm just as pleased as any to bring to the podium our good friend and a leader for this community, Doug DeVos.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it very much. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My voice is a little rocky, so bear with me while I try to make it work the best I can. A few points of clarification. I have to clarify on the Purdue quarterback thing. I was on the team, but a lot of the guys told me that if you were actually on the field on Saturday, you could get hurt. And so I strategically placed myself well down the depth chart and was very safe. I was good enough so that they gave me a colored uniform so I didn't get hit in practice. But they didn't give me one to actually play. I actually didn't have my helmet with me on the sidelines. We were playing a game in Wisconsin, and the fullback actually was just before the game, looked at his helmet, and there was a crack in it. And he showed it to the trainer. The trainer immediately looks to me, grabs my helmet, tapes off my face mask, puts his on, gives it to him, and says, "You won't need it anyway." So, wow. I said, I hope not. But he was right. I didn't need it. But it's an honor to be here, to have a chance to speak with you, and just to again acknowledge all the tremendous things that Grand Valley is doing. And Tom, to you, James, to you, the Seidman College, and the work that is happening here. Peter and Joan, your support of the organization. Don, you as well, your leadership in the community. This is such a great community institution, Grand Valley, and what it means to our community is tremendous. And to have a chance to be here with you and to share a few thoughts today is a great honor. And so I'd like to just kind of dive into a few things. I passed around a piece of paper that I'll get to in a little bit later, but wanted to just kind of dive into some thoughts. Over the past number of months, with a lot of things happening in the world, I keep having thoughts kind of rumbling around in my mind, and so I hope, if you don't mind, I'll try to organize them in a way that would make sense and maybe be useful for us to have a dialogue or a discussion, or at least to maybe spur some other dialogues and discussions amongst yourselves as time goes on, especially for those of you who are students who are here, who are kind of looking at the world and approaching it with a new set of eyes and in a new way. We're grateful and really focused on you and what you're doing and the role that you're going to play in our community and in our world in the time ahead. But to say that things are a little interesting right now might be the understatement of the morning. As you look around the world and you see what has happened, what is happening, what has happened in recent months, or even the past year or so, I'm reminded about a trip I had to Moscow just about a year ago. I was doing an interview with a woman there, and she said, okay, I know we want to talk about Amway, but what I want to talk about this morning is the crisis, the economic crisis. I said, yeah, I know, I heard about it. She said, so what are we going to do about the crisis? So for Amway, what is your marketing strategy because of the crisis? And I said, well, we think the crisis is temporary and we'll work through it. So our marketing strategy is really a long-term strategy. And I went on to kind of articulate that we have kind of a longer-term vision and we're confident we'll work through it and we'll be okay. She goes, okay. Now, your distribution strategy. What's your distribution strategy in view of the crisis? And I said, well, it's kind of the same thing. And okay, what about your other operations? What are you going to do because of the crisis? And I said, look, I grabbed her arm. I said, it's going to be okay. I felt like I was in a counseling session. We're going to be all right. We're going to make it through this. And so let's not get too wound up with the crisis and how that's going to stop everything. even 196, it will get fixed. Right? We'll make it through. Somehow, we'll make it through. So, but as we deal with things today, and as we look around our country, our community, there's a lot of challenge. And there's a lot of discussion about that. And there's a lot of people who feel our personal freedoms are being attacked in some ways, that our economic freedoms are being limited, and that being restricted, and that we're dealing with a lot of challenge and people are having in their lives. It seems that sometimes business as well is vilified in this argument, whether it's from the banks, or you point to Wall Street, or you look at the insurance companies and the recent healthcare debate, or maybe you just look to GM and Chrysler and what happened there and the government bailout. In fact, it was interesting. We had the Russian ambassador to the United States was in Ada, and we were talking with him about some business issues, and that was at the time when the bailouts were happening, and we were talking about that topic, and he looked at us and he said, you know, we used to do that in our country too. And I thought, you know, that's a pretty interesting observation of the anxiety that people have, and without trying to judge it one way or the other, just how things can be different and how people look at and have different perspectives on what's happening in our world. When business gets vilified like that, obviously I tend to take it personally, because I believe that business is the answer. That economic vitality and development is the answer to the world's problems. And not the only answer, but is an answer. And that the work that we do in the business community and the things that we teach at business schools is critical to improve the quality of life of people all over the world. And it's a pretty sweeping statement, but I want to try to put some meat to it if I can. You know, Steve Van Andel was the chairman of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and he talked about the linkage between economic freedom and personal freedom and how they have to go together. Margaret Thatcher spoke about the fact that until you have a level of economic freedom, personal freedom really doesn't have a substance for you. If you don't know where you're going to eat, where you're going to sleep, if you don't know if you're going to survive for another day or so, it really doesn't matter what kind of government you have. It really doesn't matter if you're going to get educated or not. It really doesn't matter if disease is rampant or not. You may not survive another day. And until you have a level of economic sustenance and of economic viability, these other issues that we take so dear and that are so important to us don't matter. And we have to remind ourselves that there are hundreds of millions, if not billions, of people around the world in that situation. They don't know if they're going to survive another day or not. And so what's the solution to that? I read in a McKinsey quarterly review, we had McKinsey help us with some strategic issues a while ago, and when you spend like a ton of money, they give you a cute little, quarterly booklet for free. Yeah. Pretty good deal. We're Dutch, so it was a pretty good deal. But in that, they said there was an article, and they talked about how many, they talked about the world's issues. If you talk about disease, if you talk about hunger, if you talk about war, if you talk about global warming or the environmental issues of the day, they got a bunch of Nobel laureates and academics together to really study and say, what if the world was to prioritize? Where should it go? What should it focus on first? And the answer was it should focus on developing economic viability in all these countries around the world and all these places around the world, because once you have that, you are able to look into the future. And that becomes the answer. Economic development becomes the answer, because when you are prosperous, when you are looking forward, when you have something to live for, when you have something that improves the quality of life, you tend to think about sharing it. You tend to think about protecting it. You tend to think about not starting a war with somebody else to get something that you don't have when you're able to generate it and find a way to peacefully do it yourself. You tend to think about taking care of our world in a new way. And you think about what's going to happen, what are the consequences for our children or grandchildren. And I know the environment's a big issue today, and I'm reminded of, we had up north in the summer times to Charlevoix, and it's beautiful, the lakes are gorgeous, and everybody still talks about pollution today, but I'm reminded of the stories when they were logging there, when the ships were running there, of the pollution that was there in that lake and how bad it was in years past, because nobody paid attention. and how good things are today, how clear the water is, how we pay attention today. Are we perfect? Are we doing everything right? Absolutely not. There's more we can do, sure. But when you looking to the future, when you're caring about your grandchildren, and you're wondering about the world in which they're going to live, you pay attention to the whole range of things. You give to the hospitals, you pay attention to the schools, and you give to the schools. You know that education is critical to the future. And so I feel that economic viability is the key. And I had this validated actually yesterday. I have the opportunity to serve on the board of trustees for the National Constitution Center, which is an organization based in Philadelphia. Our current chairman happens to be former President Bill Clinton. And at the meeting, he was walking through some of the things that they were doing in Haiti and the work that they need to do. And I want to kind of touch base on some of the things that he talked about. He talked about the absolute critical nature of economic development and how it had to be viable in Haiti to bring it back to independence, how important it was. That aid in the past had been keeping Haiti in a level of dependency, not able to bring it into independence. But Rwanda, by contrast with what they've gone through, has taken a different track. The work that they've done has allowed people to increase per capita GDP by 4 times since the mid-90s, while Haiti's per capita per capita income stayed the same from the mid-90s to just before the earthquake. That there's a difference there, that Rwanda had an objective to be completely free of foreign aid by 2020, and that they were working in that direction, and that they wanted to use the model in Haiti to find a better way to assist, to help people help themselves, to build a small business economy, that small and medium-sized businesses were the critical element, that really the micro-entrepreneurial activities, which are great, started by the Grameen Bank and Mohammed Yunus, a great activity, but there's a gap between that and some of the major government projects that were happening that needed to be filled by the small and medium-term businesses, or medium-sized businesses, that would allow for the ongoing economic viability in that market, in that country, so that it could move forward. And he was working to develop a loan fund, a way to develop capital so people could do that, and so it would work forward, because if they developed a viable economy, they believed that they could establish a framework for a society to grow and to prosper, and so it wouldn't become a haven for drug running. And he said at the end, he said, my goal, as he reported, was to be able to visit Haiti as a tourist before he died. Pretty interesting to me as I was thinking about the thoughts of this morning of how it comes back to building an economic base, something that's sustainable to improve the quality of life for people. And that's what we want to do, and that's what we need to do. The challenge is, a lot of times when you talk about business, it seems that it's all about money. Right? And so I wanted to start by making the moral case. This is how we improve the people's quality of life. This is how we help people think to the future. This is how we take care of our world and others around us. It's not just about money. And every time it seems we get into the discussions about business, it just focuses right on money. And I want to raise a couple points about that. Because there's a couple things we all know, but yet we seem to kind of forget in the midst of doing business at times. The first thing is, you can't take it with you, right? You know that, right? I had a chance to, many years ago, visit the pyramids in Egypt, and you get to see the King Tut exhibit. He thought he could take it with him. We still have it, right? I went to China, the terracotta warriors, right? He thought, that emperor thought he could take it with him. It's all still here. We dig it up. We look at it. Not with him. He's gone. You can't take it with you. The only thing you have at the end of the day is your character. And as a person of faith, as a Christian, I believe at some point I'm going to meet my Maker, and I'm going to have to tell him what I did. And I'm not going to have any other resources other than my character. And I believe the same is true for you. A number of years ago, when Steve Van Andel passed away, I found it interesting and was reflecting on some of the things. A lot of it was written about his gifts and his economic success and what he'd done. I found it interesting that there wasn't any, money bags around his casket. There was nothing there. It was just him. A woman who had worked with us in our home for many, many years, Maddie Ross, passed away roughly the same time. There wasn't a lot written about her life or her passing. There weren't very many people at the funeral parlor when I visited, but yet she met her Maker the same way Jay did. She was accountable for her life the same way Jay was accountable for his. At least that's what I believe. And so we have to put money into context. We're not going to live forever. We are going to pass through this world and move on. And it's what we do here that's the important part. The second thing that, again, we all know is money can't buy happiness, even though we'd all like to try it. And actually, Arthur Brooks from the American Enterprise Institute had a wonderful speech and presentation and has talked about this a lot. You can actually study happiness, what makes people happy. And that was one of his best lines, was that everybody says, okay, I know money doesn't make me happy, but I'd just like to try it for myself. You know? But let's remember that. It doesn't. And his studies and his research leads him to the conclusion that the thing that earns happiness is earned success. Wherever you were in life, whatever you've done, if you've been able to move yourself to a new level, if you've been able to achieve a level of success, if you've been able to reach your potential, that's what drives happiness. If you're the first one in your family to graduate from high school, to attend a university like this, to move out of the state, to go somewhere else and to travel the world, if you're the first one in your family to start a business, if you're the first one in your family to be able to give back to your community in a new way, what an incredible achievement that is. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be written about every day. But it has to be something that's important to you. So if we take these two things and we understand, first of all, the importance, I believe, in the role of business in our life, in the quality of life going forward, and how business is the solution if we do it right. And secondly, we understand that business isn't all about money. That there's that the moral case is made for how it helps people. Money's just a measure. Money's just a tool. Money can't be taken with you, and it doesn't bring you happiness. So if I can take that and build on the idea of earned success, and build on the idea of what do we do, how do we use business, and how do we use the things we do together as a community to bring us to our potential. What's our potential? Is the potential a national championship? Is it a Final Four appearance? What's the potential? How exciting is it to see a team that's struggling through the year and is the underdog, but yet they're able to get there? They're able to come together and pull it off and have upsets. How exciting is that? And how bad is it to see the team that's paid the most money, that does the most, has all the sorts of things and still fails? How frustrating is that in life? Whether it's your kid's soccer team or whether it's the highest level in sport. Same is true for individuals too, right? How do you reach your potential? How do we become a community that helps people reach their potential? And I think it starts with the belief that all people have potential that's built in them, that's given to them as a gift when they're born. And they have the ability to achieve great things. And that if they achieve great things, they will have a life that is filled with happiness, and they will be able to contribute along the way. So let me kind of dive in then on that idea, that as a community, it needs to be up to us, and as a business community, if we look at it from that perspective, it needs to be up to us to help enhance, to increase the potential, and to draw out the potential of every individual as part of our community. How do we make sure we're doing that? Well, that brings me to what I handed out. I'm going to go through a few things that, in my opinion, might be interesting to share with you, just some thought starters for you. Some of the things that we should be doing, that we should be thinking about as we go forward and wrestle with these ideas of how we reach our potential as a community and how business can help make that happen. Well, the first thing that we should do, I think, is we got to stick to the principles. We got to stick to the basics. And this is what we do at Amway, and Steve and I try to do this all the time, and the rest of us in the Amway family try to do this all the time. These are the 10 pillars of economic wisdom, and if you see on the bottom there, it says that we have these displayed, or these were actually displayed in the 1964 World's Fair in New York. They were actually written in the 1930s by the American Economic Foundation. They're still displayed in front of our headquarters. And we use them, and they're not the only ones written. I know the Mackinac Center and other places have principles of economic wisdom that they have written over time, and I'm not trying to focus in only on the words exactly, but just let you know that sticking to these principles has guided us in what we've done and what we've tried to do. And I just want to pick out a few of them for you as we go through. And I'll start with number 2. Where it says, government is never a source of goods. Government has a role to play, but it seems in our discussion today that government is presenting itself and is presented by others as the solution to our problems. And I think it's part of the solution, but I don't think it's the solution. I think the role that it plays is a critical element that we all need to think about. And we all need to understand, because every time somebody else or something else, some other entity does something, then we as individuals or as a community tend to do less. And I think it's a perfect time right now as these issues are front and center of what our government's doing, what our government is spending, what the activities are. I have my own views on it pretty strongly, that I think it's too much, that I think we need to really talk through and pare down where it should be, how it can be useful, because there has to be a role. There is a role for what government should do, but it's never a source of goods. And if you go on, everything that's produced is produced by the people, and only government can give to people what it first takes from people. Now, I know there's a new movie coming out, a new version of Robin Hood, right? It's got Russell Crowe, isn't that? I saw a promotion for it, right? Russell. Great story, right? The bad people with the money, the good guys are going to come take it from the bad people with the money, give it to the other people who don't have the money because these are bad people and these are good people. Great story. They tell it over and over and over. It's wonderful. And the reason it's so wonderful because the bad people took the money from the good people in the first place, right? I hate the whole concept. It's all about taking from one person and giving it somewhere else. What about creating more for everyone? Why don't we think differently? And I know that's good theater, and I'm not going to go crazy on that sort of stuff, but the whole idea is, who said it's a zero-sum game? Who said all you can do in life is take from one person and give to someone else? Who said people are not capable of creating something, of building something up, of creating more than there was in the first place? So there's plenty to share, so we don't have to take anything. So there's plenty to share. And so that people can earn it themselves, not just have it given to them. Let's go back to our happiness statement. Happiness comes from earned success. Genuine happiness, not just because something was given to you. Sure, we like gifts. But if your life is only the recipient of gifts, at some point in time, you're going to wonder about yourself. And I think you need to be confident in yourself and your abilities and what you can achieve. As it walks through here, it talks about number 6, and it talks about productivity and wages and the importance of that, of human productivity. And what we at the company try to do on a regular basis is say, right, we need to increase our productivity every year, 5%. We need to be more productive. We either need to do the same stuff with 5% less money, or we need to do 5% more with the same stuff and the resources that we had in the first place. Every year, we have to be better. We have to do that. Why? Because someone else is doing it. And if we're going to compete in the marketplace, we'd better do it. As individuals, it's the same thing. We have to be more productive. What are you going to do? How are you going to use your time more effectively? How are you going to be more productive with what you're doing? And some of the tools that we have today are fabulous, right? These little BlackBerries. Who would have thought this could happen? My daughter, a few years ago, or actually last year, she said, "Dad, what kind of cell phone did you have when you were young?" I said, "Oh, honey. First cell phone I was able to use, not have. Use had the big briefcase, you'd sling it around, and had the antenna you put on the car, and you'd drive, This BlackBerry has so much. I haven't a clue how to use most of the stuff that's in here. But what's it done for human productivity? What's it allowed people to do? We say in our business that it's a miracle, because we have millions of small businesses, independent entrepreneurs, and the tools and the resources that are at their fingertips for virtually no cost in the scheme of things. Incredible productivity enhancements, incredible tools, and it's only going to get more and more. We have to, as a community, embrace those sorts of things and say, how are we going to be more productive? How can we do more with the resources that we have? And a lot of discussions in this community are about, how do I just get more resources? That's why I love what Dr. Taylor's done with the Grand Rapids Public Schools. Said, okay, here's what the resources are. Here's how we're going to change. Here's how we're going to use those resources better. Now, there's a lot of discussion that people are having, a lot of opinions that people have about what his plans are, but I love the way he's embraced it, the way he's grasped it and said, here's what we're going to do differently to be more productive, to move our schools forward, and to take care of students better. Things that happen at this university every day. What do we do better? How do we improve ourselves? Well, the last thing as we go along and we stick to these principles, at the end, as it kind of goes, it talks about the tools of production in point number 8, and then it goes to the ownership of the tools of production. This is what my father spoke about in Selling America, that when the tools of production are owned by people, they're always more productive. When I was in Kiev recently last month, speaking with the U.S. ambassador there, he was talking about the productivity. They got some of the greatest farmland ever, just like my father spoke about 30 years ago. Even today, it's some of the greatest farmland ever, but the tools are all breaking down. They can't harvest it, and even if they harvest the food, they can't store it, so they can't sell it, so they're unable to really do anything with the resources that they have because the tools of production are breaking down, and they're unable to renew them as a country. And then at the last part, it talks about, number 10, the productivity of the tools has always been highest in a competitive society in which the economic decisions are made by millions of progress-seeking individuals. Rather than in a state-planned society in which all those decisions are made by a handful of all-powerful people, regardless of how well-meaning, unselfish, sincere, and intelligent they may be. No matter how good or how much I try, I can't make the best decision for you. I can't even do that for my kids. They really talk back to me. My favorite line was my 15-year-old daughter said, "Dad, I'm 15. I know what I'm doing." Okay. I don't think so, but okay. We want to make our own decisions, and we're always more productive. We'll make mistakes. We'll have problems. We'll run into roadblocks. But we'll learn. Economic decisions being made by the millions of progress-seeking individuals. Again, in Kiev a number of years ago, I was with some of our Amway staff there who had grown up in the Eastern Bloc countries. This particular guy was from Poland, and he was joking about how, every year the government would have some big announcement because their state-planned society, of what they were going to do. They said, there's no beans this year because the Czechs forgot to grow the beans. So every country had their produce that they were going to grow, right? Everything was planned, everything was organized, but something always went wrong in this great state-planned society. The problems we have with hunger in the United States or in developed nations today generally are you just can't get the food to the right people. People who are hungry. I love John Arnold here for years, who would always talk about Second Harvest Gleaners. We've got food. We just got to get it to people. We have a distribution problem. We don't have a food problem. We have a distribution problem. So let's get to work on solving that. There's an abundance of goods when people make the decisions, the economic decisions for themselves. And so I think it's important that we stick to our principles. If we're going to move forward, we can't just find the next new idea or the greatest new creative piece. We have to stick to principles that have stood the test of time. These were written in the 30s. These were displayed in the 60s. They still are the guideposts that we use as a company. We look back to these things about how we need to operate, what we need to do, how we can be efficient, how we can be effective, how we can be excellent in what we do as a company today. Because these principles still stand. They still make sense. And I'd encourage you to look at these, find those things that are written that have stood the test of time and that can be applied to our future. Well, let me roll through a few other things. Lead by example. That would be the second thing. First of all, follow the principles. Second of all, lead by example. Don't just wait for somebody else to do it. Do it yourself. Start your own business and take your own activity. I heard Dave Ramsey had a great line. He said, at the end of the day, you're all self-employed. All right? You're all self-employed. You got to find a job. You got to do it. It's you who's out there doing something. It's not somebody else who gives you a job. It's you who've earned the job and are doing the job and who have the responsibility. It's up to you. It's not a gift from somebody else. You're expected to do something when you're in that role. So at the end of the day, we're all self-employed. Lead by example. And again, kind of going back to the original theme, a lot of has been talked about of so many people in this community who are generous and who have given back. And there's a lot of names, Seedman, Secchia, a lot of names that are on buildings around the community. Meyer, others. First thing that they all do is stay in business. First thing you got to do is be a good business. We've had a lot of things. People say, oh, wow, you're very generous. You give all this. That's great. I love it. All they want to do is talk about giving money away. Great. Well, just remember, we got to have something that earns it in the first place. The first thing we can do in leading by example, even in sharing, is to have a viable business that generates and adds to the community on an ongoing basis, and that can add to the community long after you're gone. Lead by example. Don't just talk about it. Don't just theorize about it. Go out and do it. Make it happen in your job, in your business, in your role in life, whatever it may be. The next one, start young. Start young. It's never too late. But start young. I'm involved with the First Steps organizations looking at early child development. And we did a study on brain development of children and how when children are born, they have incredible potential. Every child has unbelievable potential. But even in those first couple years, that potential can either be nurtured and expanded or it can be snuffed out by the environment in which they live. The stress of their environment, the challenge of their environment, whether it's a nurturing environment to help them grow or it's an environment that shrinks them down. And it has ongoing impact in those first few years. There's going to be about 5,000 children born in Kent County this year. What are we doing with them? What are we doing for them? How are we going to take care of them as a community? How are those families going to take care of them? Are we helping those families take care of them as well as we should? Are we giving them the educational opportunities that they need? Are we doing everything we can to help them grow and develop? Or not? They are the future. The students here today, you are the future. I've kind of gotten recently to this wonderful stage where I go, man, I'm one of the old guys. Doggone it, how'd that happen? You know, I've got kids going to college next year, and it's like, where'd this go? You know, it's not supposed to be this way. The next generation. What are you going to do as students? What's the next generation going to do? Start young. Let's make sure we're paying attention. And it's not all about us, whatever age we may be. What's the next generation coming through? How are we paying attention to that? How do we build a culture of education so that we begin to educate and help and support and train and develop the incredible potential that this community has? We're going to have 5,000 new people born in this community that have unbelievable potential. And the next 20 years, you're going to start to see it. But are we too worried taking care of ourselves right now in our current situation than to invest in their futures? Something to think about. Involve everyone. Number 4, involve everyone. There's such incredible strength in diversity. Everybody adds something to the party. I always love it when you get a big group together and you always find somebody kind of raises their hand and they talk too much and they're always the one in the meeting, but you know, they have something that they added. You know, and all that talk, you go, you know, if you read through it, there were some really good things that they had, and they talk too much. Then you have the other extreme where somebody never says anything. Then at one point, they kind of raise their hand, they dive in, and they add something. You go, wow, that was brilliant. Everybody has something to add. Everybody has something they can do. And it can impact all of us. We were in a meeting, a family meeting, about 2 years ago now, I think, when my nephew first talked about this idea of art prize. And I got to say, I don't get it. I don't know what you're talking about. You're going to do what? I'm not in the art community. I don't understand that. It didn't register. Well, we're going to have art all over. We're going to bring people downtown. I go, really? Oh, okay, you're my nephew. I'll help you. Okay, what do you want? Sure. And even when I was coming downtown for the opening event, I go, what's all this traffic? What are all these people doing around here? It never registered. I was brain dead. Now I'm basically generally known as Rick's uncle. Because of what he did. What incredible contributions he's made. And what incredible contributions are being made every day from people throughout this community. Young, old, rich, poor, doesn't matter. People all over are adding to this community in a variety of ways. Let's make sure we involve everyone. One of the great frustrations I have is, especially in the charitable organizations that I deal with sometimes, and they look at other charities and say, well, our competitors are over here. I said, competitors? Are you kidding? You're doing the same stuff. You're supposed to help our community. You're not competing for funds. What's wrong with you? It drives me nuts. How do you collaborate? How do you save costs? How do you be more productive? What can you do better? How do we get goods and services for people who just need a little bit of a help, who can take care of themselves, have the potential to take care of themselves, but need a little assistance getting started? What are you going to do to help them through that? And how are you going to partner with somebody else to make it happen? Steve and I do interviews all the time. People say, how do you work together? How can you be a co-CEO? It's because we like partnership. It's simple. We like working with each other. Every time we look at big issues or big challenges, we say, what do you think? What do you think? We bounce back and forth, and we feel strongly we make better decisions because there's two of us talking about it. And we're able to bring in more ideas, more views, more perspectives, and reach better decisions. Involve everyone. Everyone can add to the goodness going forward. And the fifth one that I'd say, and I'm sorry I'm rambling on here a little bit, make sure you share. Time, talent, and treasure. It's not all about money. Some of the greatest resources you can give are mentoring somebody else, being a friend to somebody else. Sure, money, giving gifts is a great thing, absolutely. Your time, volunteering, your talent, how do you help somebody else? My father was talking at the meeting yesterday with President Clinton in Haiti, with his organization that he's with, Partners Worldwide, based in Grand Rapids, to say, if they're trying to develop this economy, shouldn't we have somebody who's a great manufacturer, small or medium-sized business leader here in Grand Rapids go down there and say, here's how you do it? Can't we teach people in all sorts of business areas how to do it? Here's how you build a law firm. Here's how you build an accounting firm. Here's how you build a university. Here's how you do it. Let me help you do it. So we can teach people how to fish, so they can take care of themselves. So those are the ideas that I'd like to share with you a little bit today. That we understand that business is a solution, I believe. And it's not all about money. And if we go through those things that we talked about, that we can add to our community and help our community reach its potential. Thanks, everybody. Now, I rambled on for a while, but I'm happy to do some questions or something here until you give me the sign and say, I got to go. Anything I can? It's that wonderful time where I say, I wouldn't mind asking a question, but I got to go. Far away.
Amway's taken a loss in previous years because of their investments in China, but now that you're seeing great gains from that, potentially Procter & Gamble can't do that. Could you go about your strategies on that? Like how you penetrated that market?
Sure, the question is about our investment in China and how we went through some tough times and went forward. The biggest thing is a couple things. We took a long-term view. It's going to be a good market. It's going in the right direction. They're probably going to do fits and starts and have some ups and downs along the way, but we're going to make it. We had a great management team. Eva Chang and her management team there. In the days, in the early 90s, everyone in Hong Kong was trying to figure out how to get out because China was going to come in. Even her team said that the door swings both ways. And if China's going to come into Hong Kong, then we can go into China. and let's take that tack. Let's go in there, and it's going to be a great market long term. And then, so we made the commitment long term. We had great people who understood the marketplace, and then we just stayed close to the marketplace. How's it developing? We had a tremendous number of government restrictions on how we operate our business model in China. And at first, I must say, we said, I don't think we can operate with the restrictions they're putting on us. But we said we have to if we want to be in this market. We want to be in this market. We should be in this market. So, let's get creative. And that's what the teams did. And they understood that we could make changes to our model that still protected the integrity of the model, but complied with the regulations locally. And they did an incredible job making that happen. In fact, so good that we're stealing ideas from China now, primarily business centers that we have. We set up shops. We have over 200 shops in China. We'd never done that really anywhere in the world. But now we're doing that in markets all around the world now, that you have business centers for product information, training information, business information, and a place to bring your customers and your prospects. And so I think it's really those elements were the secret of just sticking with it. And now it's just staying close to a market that's growing dramatically. But really all the credit goes to the team. And really the management team, I have to add to it our distributor organization, the sales organization. Because they had all worked together in Hong Kong and Taiwan. They knew each other, they trusted each other. So when we said we have to change to comply, they said we understand. They knew the market as well, and they worked together to find the solutions. So those are some of the elements. Great, thank you. Don?
There are many great things for people like yourself across the world, across the nation. And despite that, we still have the core of many of our cities disintegrating and continue to disintegrate and have been for a long time. Why?
Well, there's a number of reasons for it, but I think the solution goes into economic development. If I go back to the China example, China has brought tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of people out of poverty to a level of economic development and sustainability. And it's not the perfect example. The United States isn't the perfect example. No one's the perfect example. But there has to be a level of hope and optimism that's born there, and a confidence in the people in those areas. That's the first thing we do in our business, is we say, we don't care where you've come from. We don't care what success or failures you've had in your past. If you're willing to do the work today, you have potential. You can be successful. And we back it up. We try to create that environment, and then we try to give that support the best way that we can. So the solution to me is making sure we embrace people who are struggling, or neighborhoods or areas that are struggling, and make sure that they know we have confidence in them, and that we believe they have the capacity to care for themselves and take care of themselves. And that as a community, if we create an environment to allow that to happen, and we remove barriers, we create an environment. That's why schools are so important. That's why families are so important in there. We create that environment, and then we make sure we give the proper amount of support. Not that it's a gift that we're going to take care of everybody, but some proper support to get it started in an appropriate way so people can take care of themselves. I think that becomes the solution of where it goes. Right. Chris?
I was writing a few notes out on Twitter as you were speaking here, and one of the quotes that
Did I make a mistake or anything? Or? It's already broadcast.
You said happiness comes from earned success, not something that was given to you. Several people immediately wrote back saying, but he inherited his money. Apparently he's saying this without irony, and I imagine that's something that's dogged you most of your life. So how do you respond to people that when you say something like that would answer back that way?
Well, the studies all talked about the fact that if the lottery winners and those who inherited a lot of money weren't necessarily happy. So happiness is something that's completely unrelated to money. It's something that you want to do on your own. You'd make a decision to be happy. And so for me, it's pretty simple from a faith perspective, from a family perspective. What are the things that bring joy in your life? It's your kids and your grandkids, right? It's a healthy contribution, being part of a team. I joke about the stuff I did at Purdue. I was part of something, though. I was part of a team, and whatever it was, my potential wasn't to play on Saturdays, but my potential was I at least made the travel team my third year. I at least did that, and so that's probably where I landed, and so I felt great about that. And so whatever the opportunities are in life, whatever that you have, reach for them. Set your goals high. Even if you fall short of your goal a little bit, at least you've felt you've earned something. You've been able to tick something off the list. But it goes back, money doesn't buy happiness. And it's easy to say, but that's what the research would say, that even those who've inherited it or been given it or won it in a lottery, it doesn't translate into happiness.
You spoke a lot about the importance of people creating new ideas to generate wealth. What's been your personal findings or Alticor's findings in creating environments that nurture creativity?
Well, it's hard. Because we're creatures of habit, and we keep going back to what we want to do, and we've had initiatives in the past where we want to create innovation, right? And so a lot of times we tried that in the past and say, okay, well, there's the innovations person, go innovate. I'm going to keep doing it the way I was doing it. And in recent years, as we started to think about it, we got a little bit more focused to say, we have some very competent folks who can help us through the process of creativity. It's a science. It can be studied. People can go through a process, even in an engineering way, and create something new and be innovative, and it's within all of us. So what we try to do is create the atmosphere, and basically as a management or leadership group, just remove the barriers that allowed people to be creative and allowed people to be innovative, and gave them the space in the room to test a few ideas rather than an upper management person trying to sound smart by saying, well, we tried that before and it won't work, or we did that before, or I saw that and I read an article or whatever. To just create the atmosphere. And if we felt that if we just created the atmosphere, that we would unleash creative, innovative ideas, and that people would be able to just bring them up on their own. And I had a wonderful opportunity with a group in one of the manufacturing areas who said, they took us up on that. They said, we were going to test it to see if it was real. And so they tested their management, and their management said, you bet, if you need to get together, if we need to change things around, if you need some more time to do these sorts of things, go for it. He nailed it, because all he did was remove some barriers. He gave them some opportunity to be creative. Their productivity has increased, their quality has increased, their enjoyment, their happiness has increased. Because of that simple decision to say, what do you need? What environment can a manager create in that department to allow that to happen? But it wasn't the manager's ideas. It was their ideas. And so what we just try to do is create the environment. Right? Anything else? JC?
You've inspired us this morning. You've shared with us optimism, energized us. You held our pictures so that we can pour into other people's cups, and I appreciate that. How do you stay motivated? For every optimist out there, there's a pessimist. What do you do about those pessimists?
Well, you just stay optimistic, I mean, we talk about a lot of, we're going through a lot of change in the company, things that we've done in different places, and especially with a lot of things in the distributor organization. A lot of people have struggled, and we've had that question, boy, they're really struggling, they're really negative, they just really are frustrated with the changes that are happening. What do we do to these people? And I just said, love them. These are great people. And they're struggling, they're at a tough time. So, hug a pessimist, and tell them that it's going to be okay. Like the reporter in Russia, look, it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. The sun's going to come up tomorrow. Sing an Annie song or something. But it's going to be okay. That's kind of, I guess maybe I learned it a little bit years ago. In the early '70s. Okay, Dad, when I turn 16 and am able to drive a car, are we going to have any gas, right? The old oil embargo, all that sort of stuff. He goes, oh, for goodness sakes, don't worry about it. Well, what's going to happen with Russia? It's going to implode on itself. It did. All the things you worry about, of all the things that you worry about, very few actually happen. And so that's kind of been my experience. So plan for it, be prepared, absolutely. I'm not saying just, walk around every day thinking, oh, boy, everything's going to be great. You plan and prepare, but you just also go back and say, generally, people try to do the right things. generally people try to help each other. And there's a lot of bad news in the world, but there's a tremendous amount of good news that I think we all personally experience. It just doesn't get reported or communicated as much as some of the other things. But you just kind of live in that environment and understand that, that we're all trying to do the right thing, generally.
We have future business leaders in here. How would you, you have to do the business. How should they get engaged in creating the community that we want to live in, raise our families in? How do we inform the policies that we want to see?
Well, the question is how do business leaders get involved in our community? There's a variety of ways. I mean, just pick any social organization, Salvation Army, United Way, great organizations, business organizations, Chamber of Commerce, Right Place. Get involved politically. Pay attention to what your leaders are doing. Hold them accountable for the decisions that they're making, for the votes that they're taking. They make votes on a regular basis every day. Are you watching it? Are you paying attention to that, or are you just kind of doing it on a real quick review because ideologically something fits between what they say, but it may be different than what they do on all sides of the aisle. So it's really a personal decision to get involved, and those organizations are one way because there's so many. There's so many offshoots of those organizations where you can be involved with more and more people, but also do it personally. Pick your church, your schools. There are venues where you can get involved with organizations, alumni associations. Go back to, if you're from Grand Rapids, go back to your high school, go back to your elementary school, volunteer, participate with JA, be involved in teaching a class. There's so many things that can happen. Build a playground. That's what we do as a company. We work with organizations to do that, neighborhood organizations. There's just a tremendous number of ways to be involved, and as a business leader, I'd encourage you to do it. Don't just sit on the outside and complain or have those ideas without taking some action to do something about it. Get involved with an organization. Look around. Start somewhere, and when you start somewhere, you'll find all those connections to other places. Ask the person sitting next to you what they do. Those are some of the ideas that would pop into my mind. Thanks. One more, then we should probably wrap up then.
Just a quick question. Obviously, your family's had some experience on the whole political side of our society. And in your view, some of the experiences that you've had and your exposure to politicians and other business leaders, what does the state of Michigan need to do to kind of reinvigorate itself, provide a more positive environment for all, particularly the young people here, asking themselves, where am I going to work, and get involved in the community. But I would imagine a lot of them are probably more worried about just, can I get a job?
Sure.
What are your thoughts on it?
Well, the question kind of goes to what, how do you apply some of these principles to the state of Michigan? What would the state need to do? And one of the organizations I'm involved with is Business Leaders for Michigan, who've laid around a turnaround plan, the involvement with the Chamber of Commerce, the same thing, put out, have linked to that plan with ideas of specific things that need to happen. And it's really kind of applying the business principles and understanding what the role of our government in the state, could and should be. And like I said, I have ideas about what that should be. I generally think it's smaller. I think, generally you should, probably not spend more than you're getting, and probably not try to take more than is necessary, and try to be efficient in your operations, and try to be effective in deciding, prioritizing what should happen. But I would refer you in more detail to the Michigan Turnaround Plan, michiganturnaroundplan.com. It was really some of the best ideas that have been brought together by business leaders around, or go to the Chamber of Commerce websites and see some of the more specific ideas that have been laid out there that we're trying to encourage our legislators to do. But at the end of the day, it's up to you as a voter to hold your representatives accountable and to see what they did, what they voted on, why they voted on it, and then pay attention in this election like no other. And hold them accountable to the things that you believe are important, and really dive through and go beyond what they say and look at their record about what they do, because that's just such a difference in politics and in life, right? I mean, my kids say they'll clean their rooms, and what do? They don't, so it's all of us have that issue in life. So I'd say that, we still have some control. We shouldn't feel that it's outside of our control. We're the voters. We get to vote. We should make those decisions. Thanks, good question. I'm done. Thanks, everybody.
You know, I think JC said it well. Doug has inspired and energized. So help me thank him again, please. You know, back in 2002, Doug delivered another great presentation, and we gave him a golf shirt. Now, I hope it's worn out, but it's at least out of style. So we decided we'd give him another shirt and a golf cap this time.
All right,
Thanks.
perfect. Thank you so much.
And again, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us this morning. And I see my President Emeritus, Grand Valley State University, Don Lubbers. Please, let's acknowledge his presence this morning. Thank you, Don. We really appreciate your getting us on this right path and heading us in the right direction. And we thank President Haas for sort of just moving right in and helping us to continue to move forward. And the support that you provide for the Business College is tremendous. We thank both of you. I'd also obviously like to thank Peter and Joan again. We couldn't do this without you. Thank you for your foresight and your support. We really appreciate all your efforts to be there when we need you. Hear, hear. The Seidman College of Business provides a rigorous learning environment with a student focus, a regional commitment, and a global perspective. M&M, our mission and our mantra. And this kind of event gives us an opportunity to hit on every one of those dimensions. And we really appreciate the fact that you are here because you are our regional commitment. And we appreciate the fact that you are as committed to us as we are to you. Thank you so much for that. But clearly, our focus is on the students. And so I'd like to show our appreciation for those young folks who get up to get here at 7:30 in the morning to be at this function, yes? And one final thing, if I may. We have advisory groups across the university, across the college, and throughout the departments and units within the college. Business professionals who help us to make sure that we are doing what we should do to make sure that the young folks have what they need to be productive when they leave here. But we also have student advisory groups. And I'm especially proud of the undergraduate student advisory board that I have, and the graduate student advisory board for that matter. And I know a lot of them are here this morning, and in fact, a couple of them who've even graduated are now back here. So I'm going to ask those folks to stand so we can recognize the tremendous contributions you make to supporting the Business College. And you know, this is always such a wonderful, wonderful experience. We get to come here and get started with networking and a nice breakfast. We always have an opportunity to learn together, to be able to discuss, and then we get our morning started and we're off to work for the day. We thank you for helping us to create this kind of environment every time we have a breakfast. So as you get started for the rest of the day, thank you for supporting Grand Valley State University, the Seidman College of Business, and this breakfast series. Thank you.